Franco, I want to thank you for sitting down with us here today. It's really our privilege and a pleasure to be able to ask you a few questions about the product line in Ocean Avenue and how you got started. And I think we all have a few questions that we'd like to ask of you. And let me start off by just talking a little bit, if you would, about how you came up with the product line and the whole wave system. I understand you have a personal story that's near and dear to your heart. Would you mind sharing it with us today?
Sure. Well, it started early on for me at the University of British Columbia. I began in 1984, a long time ago, studying biochemistry and nutritional sciences. And at the time, I started a side curriculum of my own while I was studying the biochem typical or traditional curriculum. And that was to study the inflammatory cascade. And the reason for me at the time, the impetus was performance enhancement. I was a bodybuilder, a young bodybuilder, just trying to build my body for strength and power. At the time, I wasn't really too interested in competition. But I tapped into chemistry that was very effective in improving recovery from physical work. And so I found within 6 months of doing this work, I was recovering faster than my friends in the gym. My results were improving tremendously compared to them. Within a year, they were looking back and wanting to be part of this experimental program I was involved in. We were taking blood work every week to determine whether I was training too hard and reaching a catabolic state, they call it, and then how I was able to achieve an anabolic state, and measuring pH, C-reactive protein. These are markers for inflammatory cascades and recovery potential. So I was using various vitamins, minerals, and herbs and altering these compounds to improve bioavailability, and hit upon a few herbs that worked quite well, and one in particular, which is a curcuminoid, at the time was recognized as an anti-inflammatory. But I was able to purify and extract the actual fraction that was involved in the inflammatory cascade and create a very low molecular weight compound that could penetrate very deep. And at the time, I think I was a young man, I was naive. Didn't realize what I had tapped into. But by the time we had 12 subjects from the gym working on this project, I realized by then I started competing, and I won Mr. Vancouver, Mr. BC, still naive and a little bit unappreciative of what I had developed. But when I hit the Western Canadian Championships, and suddenly I'm at a level that I didn't expect to be at, and winning unanimously, and I realized I had great genetic potential, but these products were definitely bringing me to that level. I was in the gym at a 200-pound body weight, squatting 700 pounds. Wow. And so here's me sitting in a squat rack with, if you're familiar in a gym, these 45-pound plates, 7 plates on each side. And you take the bar off, and that thing just goes, and your body's almost ready to buckle. But the power, and people said, well, those are Olympic lifts. The whole gym would stop training and come around and crowd around this squat rack that I was focusing and working towards. And I didn't realize they were Olympic lifts. I was just doing my thing. And so it led to the realization, an epiphany eventually in 1993, that I had something different. So I began the isolation process and patenting these compounds. So Empower is ultimately the product that has come to fruition from this technology. And it has taken 10 years to evolve it, purify it, bring it to the level we're at today. But during that period, I developed other products that were synergistic to the effects of Empower to bring me to the level I wanted to get to in bodybuilding. And those are the roots, really, for what we have today. I had a little bit of a sideline in the process, because in 1991, I fell ill while I was training for the Mr. North America Championships. And I ended up in the hospital. In over 9 weeks, lost almost 50 pounds. And at the time, they diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis, which is a serious condition. It's an autoimmune condition, and there's a genetic component to it that is now coming to fruition in the last 2 years. So what had happened was my body had responded with an inflammatory response to my large intestine, and no drugs were able to correct the problem, or at least subdue the symptoms. And the specialists who were involved in the program then had said that I needed to have the large intestine removed or I would die. But in the 9 weeks that I was there, I had realized that over the 2 years of research that I was doing, every time I was using the substance for performance enhancement, a condition that I kind of felt gurgling would go away. 3 months on the product, it would go away. 3 months off, it would start to come back, to the point where I ran out for 6 months, and that's when I became ill. And it all kind of came together. And I realized that that was the product that was keeping me healthy. I came back to the gym, and I walked out of the hospital to extract the next generation of the product. Within 3 weeks of pulling the product, the microfraction out of the herb, I was better. Within 3 months, I was training intensely again, and within a year, I won Mr. North America.
Wow, what a fantastic testimony. Thank you very much.
Franco, you've invented the WAVE system, and I'm told these products can work independently or together. Can you tell us a little bit about the WAVE system itself and how these products are designed to work together?
Well, the WAVE system is a system that describes the synergies in the products. And when I design products, I usually design them as groups. And the reason is that you can't really get all of the biological benefits out of one product when you're trying to deal with inflammatory controls or anabolic controls or performance enhancement, because there's so many different biological systems that work together in the body. So what we have to do is create products that touch upon each of these systems independently so that you can gain the benefits of these synergies. And WAVE stands for with added value. And so what we have here is products that individually have very potent effects, their ability to target specific systems in the body, yet together they work to help you reach your goals. For example, we know if weight management is the goal, we have to affect thermogenesis, the body's ability to burn fat and create heat. Thermogenesis, creation of heat. Invigorate does that. Invigorate also has built-in synergies within the one product where it affects the mind to improve focus and serotonin efficiencies. But then how do we incorporate into Invigorate the ability to supply nutrition that helps the body lose weight? So this is nutrition that enhances thermogenesis, low-calorie nutrition that can be incorporated into the diet. And that's where WaveSmart comes into play. So we would use Invigorate to support the metabolism, WaveSmart to deliver more nutrition that helps control also the thyroid gland and insulin efficiency. And believe it or not, people don't realize that Empower is also an amazing synergistic product when it comes to weight management, because a lot of people don't realize that inflammation itself puts out a thermogenic fire. Inflammation causes the secretion, or involves the production of prostaglandins. And prostaglandin 2, for example, is one of these inflammatory hormones that shuts down thermogenesis. So if we use Empower, Invigorate, and WaveSmart together, powerful weight management system, the synergies. Although either one could be used for weight management on its own with a lesser degree of activity. Let's say we're active and we want to work out to gain muscle tone. What I do is I take Focus and Way Beyond before my workout. Why? Focus gives you the stimulatory effect. And in fact, Focus has a nutrigenomic system, a system that activates a genome program that was built into all of us that allows us to burn fat earlier in the training session. For example, if you work out on a treadmill, it takes you 15 minutes to start burning fat before that you're burning glycogen. But with Focus, the switch goes on and you burn fat right from the beginning. So that's why I use Focus before my workout. But I use Way Beyond with it because Way Beyond is a specialized whey protein that's high in branched chain amino acids. So it preserves tissue, it's anti-catabolic. And then I use Way Beyond after again because it also has a component in it that helps you rebuild tissue. So you can see Focus and Way Beyond before, Way Beyond after, and then Invigorate throughout the day to support the metabolism and improve weight management. Let's say I work out hard enough that I need anti-inflammatory control. We're going to use Empower in addition to that. So you see how the synergies support all kinds of physical activity, all kinds of goals, weight management, general health. You use them all at a smaller or lesser degree in terms of quantity of Way Beyond or quantity of WaveSmart, and they're used daily to just maintain general health for the entire family.
So Franco, you've had an entire career being passionate about nutrition and good health, but mixed with the expertise of being a biochemist. And so how are these, there's so many there's so many traditional supplements on the market. How are these particular products superior to the average supplements, the everyday supplements that we see?
That's a good question. You know, these products fit into categories that already exist in the marketplace. We see anti-inflammatories, we see whey proteins are prolific, but this is very different, very different. I've been involved in formulating a lot of products over the last 20 years, so I'm on both ends of the spectrum. And for example, Empower and Way Beyond, they're patent pending. These are patent pending products based on the technologies. Nothing like them exists in the marketplace. Sure, let's start with Way Beyond. We see whey products in the marketplace. Way Beyond is a non-hydrolyzed protein. And what this means is that the protein's benefits are maintained. The integrity of the peptides, there are specific peptides in this whey that act as nutrigenomic switches. And the configuration of those peptides needs to stay intact in order to fit into a lock and key system. And most wheys are processed with high temperatures, low pH, and enzymes that destroy this peptide system. Way Beyond is an undenatured whey derived from sweet dairy whey. It is not the cheaper source of whey that we might find coming from the cottage cheese industry, where acid hydrolysis and rennet and temperature is not regulated. The other thing is that you will never find artificial sweeteners or artificial flavors in these products. A lot of companies in the marketplace will use artificial sweeteners and flavors because they are very potent. And what happens is you can use very small quantities of these chemicals in order to mask the off tastes in these proteins. Well, Way Beyond comes off the line tasting amazing on its own. If you tasted it, it would taste almost sweet. And the reason is that we haven't unraveled these peptides to release their ammonia and carboxyl groups that create the acid taste and the off taste of the proteins. They're inverted and they stay away from the taste buds. So the product tastes good. And that means that we don't have to add a lot of flavor, we don't have to add a lot of sweetener. So we can use natural compounds that are not quite as potent as these artificial compounds. The other thing is, no sugars. We get enough carbohydrates in our diet. Who wants it in their Way Smart meal replacement product or their Way Beyond protein product when you need a high quality protein? So the nature of this protein has allowed us to be able to sweeten it with a small amount of stevia without an aftertaste and a very small amount of berry fruit extracts. And it tastes phenomenal, no carbohydrate added, low glycemic index so we don't get that glycemic flow, and clean. You're not going to see PCBs, hormones, or heavy metals in this product because they're tested prolifically. And again, the whey proteins are not denatured. When it comes to Empower, how is Empower different? We've seen some curcumin products in the marketplace. Well, this product has the fraction, that small nano fraction I spoke of, added to it. When you look at the ingredient list, you look at ours compared to others, there's 3 different ingredients in there that are all curcumin based. Why are there 3? Well, I'm not telling people exactly what the nature of all 3 are, but the reality is it's not one curcumin compound like everybody else has. The 3 means there's 3 different components. One is my special nanofraction, and then the bottom component is a curcuminoid that's highly specialized. Every product is tested for residues that are commonly used in extraction so that we don't get these things concentrated up in our body. And very clean, very powerful, very different, patent pending. That's what makes ours different.
Well, thanks. I did not understand that. Thank you very much.
Thanks for asking.
Franco, can you tell us why you chose Ocean Avenue and network marketing as your method of distribution?
Well, it's an interesting question because I think Ocean Avenue chose me, and I chose to accept. You know, this also speaks to the fact that our products are different because I did not choose or formulate these products for Ocean Avenue. It was an interesting evolution because the products were to be launched sometime in June in my own company. I've built 2 different nutraceutical companies, and this was my next evolution of a corporation that was upper echelon technology. It was the last evolution of what I was working on. And I was ready to launch in June. And so these were my products, not designed for Ocean Avenue. So everything I knew that I was passionate about were already built into them. And Ken ran into me, and if you know Ken Dunn, he's a shaker. So he wouldn't take no. And the first conversation we had was a 3-hour conversation on the phone. And it was about Ken using his, I guess, interrogation tactics on trying to pull information on what I was working on, because he had heard something about this technology. And I said, no, you know, Ken, next week we're actually we're out to produce our labels, and within 7 weeks we're in production and manufacturing. All the R&D's done. And within a few days of talking, you know, he and I both realized that a lot of what he had experienced in his MLM channel was a lot of what I had experienced. There were a lot of synergies. And what I came to realize is that although I'd never been involved in MLM, you know, this is an intimate platform where you're, you know, in contact directly with people. And, you know, I had an opportunity to really experience the end result of my products, where people were using them in a one-on-one opportunity. So that was the reason why I decided, you know, okay, let's sit down, let's talk. You know, I'll tell you a little bit about the technology, and then we can discuss, you know, in principle how that can work as a deal. So we came together, and you know, I'm one of the equity holders in this MLM organization, and we, you know, share a lot of what will come out of this organization. So I'm also in a position where I can help navigate the process. So with that, you know, a little bit of control in the system, I felt a little comfortable. And over the next 3 to 4 months, which brought us to around August, the comfort level arose, and I began to realize, you know, Fred and Ken, I mean, they're like brothers. They're phenomenal people. Yeah, so here I am, and here I am in the MLM.
Wow, that was enlightening, Franco. I really appreciate you spending the time. I know that you're busy and you're going to get back to continuing to formulate products for Ocean Avenue. I really appreciate everything you've been doing.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Travis, when Jeff came down, one of his concerns was that, I don't think I'm speaking out of line, that he was concerned that these products were perhaps formulated in a lab somewhere for multiple different companies, and it was just another one of many that they were producing, and found out over his visit here that that wasn't the case.
You know, Jeff, one of the things that that got me excited about this company is there's a lot of companies today that they start off with the idea of creating a company, and then the afterthought is the product. And so, you know, what happens is you get a lot of these executives that go into these formulators and say, make us the next shake, make us the next energy drink. And they come back and they sit around the boardroom, and that's where the marketing story it begins. And we've all heard the stories. You know, I climbed the tallest mountain in Tibet. I came across a bush that had berries on it. You know, I was sore from climbing, and I ate these berries, and all of a sudden, I felt so much better. So, Franco, if you wouldn't mind me just asking this question for a moment, tell me how we're different. You know, tell me how we're set apart from the rest of the industry when it comes to formulating these products. Are we formulating them in-house, or really where do they come from?
Well, the products, as I've described, stem from historical work that goes back in excess of 10 years. And when it comes to producing the commercial products today, it's a meticulous process. In fact, you know, that has been left with me in Canada, where I'm familiar with the manufacturing systems. And I control all the quality control, all the ingredients that come in. In fact, last week we had some ingredients that came in, they didn't pass testing, they went back, and we got new ingredients coming. We were delayed by a week, but that's life. You know, it costs us a lot of money by delaying. We know we're all waiting for inventory, but it has to be the right inventory. And you know, we get a sample from the supplier before they send the commercial shipment. I have the sample tested at a third-party facility, not our own facility. It comes back, then we say, okay, send the product. When the product arrives, it gets tested again, because 20% of the time they'll send whatever they've got on the floor to make the sale. So that product, in fact, the one we're talking about, passed with the sample but failed with the commercial shipment that arrived. It went back. So we test all ingredients before they come in, for PCBs, for heavy metals, to make sure that we reach achieve the fingerprint of every ingredient and active in the material. Then the products are blended. The products again are tested upon completion for microbials, then for activity. Because what happens is sometimes in the processing we may lose some activity, oxidation, just in the air. When you mix things up and you mix oxygen into the process, you may lose some of the activity. So we have a target and we have to meet it. We test also for PCBs. We test for growth hormone in the whey products. So it's quite extensive. And the reason is, my personal view is my kids are going to consume this product, and they're going to consume it every day.
Mhm.
So I don't want any of this garbage in it. That's why we don't put artificial sweeteners in it. We don't put artificial flavors in it. And the raw materials, I want to make sure are clean. And that clean is a theme in the product line. When you look at the ingredient list, you realize there's no chemicals in there that you don't recognize. It's a clean product, and you won't find any chemicals in the raw material because I'm making sure that manufacturing that's taking place. I abide by the Health Canada regulations, which are very stringent and world-renowned, and I have to, because these products have to pass testing at a GMP facility that produces drug pharmaceutical products as well. So you cannot bring product that does not pass pharmaceutical grade in a facility that's producing pharmaceutical grade ingredients, because there could be cross-contamination. So we're talking about very high-end products that are produced at pharmaceutical stringent regulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've got an incredible lineup of products, but I have to ask, where do we go from here? What comes next for Franco Cavaleri and Ocean Avenue?
Well, we have an interesting lineup. I'm engaged with the Faculty of Medicine at the University of British Columbia, and indirectly, because of my engagement there, we have a group of professors that work in their specialty. And basically, in forums and in class theaters, we are discussing the latest research on what's called signal transduction. And signal transduction is basically how our cells respond to these nutrient-gene interactions or interactions with the environment, how our cells respond in terms of behavior. And the interesting thing is that these pathways have really unveiled some more of which Empower is involved in. And we're going to see research demonstrating activity that's unfathomable, for example, for Empower, but also shedding light on how we can apply the research that's already been done on 17 more products. So I've got 17 products lined up. All the R&D is done. We can expand as fast as this company can handle it, as fast as our leaders are willing to absorb inventory products and new technologies. And some of them will be patented, some of them not, but the technologies will be cutting edge like you've never seen before.
Wow. That's exciting.
It was exciting.
Travis, you're allowed one more question.
So then, all of the manufacturing is actually controlled in a company facility. None of this is outsourced. It's actually produced in-house.
No, some of it is outsourced, but we have an agreement where I control all the QC. Sometimes it's not good to be the best at everything, and there are companies out there that are really good at manufacturing and do a good job. The thing is, it's important to keep them honest, and they're in business too, so sometimes they can cut corners. And the company that we're working with, there's no way that they would cut corners, but there's no way that I would take a chance. So I'm involved in collection of all the tested samples. We also keep, for example, samples from every lot that's produced in our own archives. So if something happens, we're not relying on a third party to come up with the archive sample to save their own rear. We have a sample in-house that we can test to make sure that everything's covered. And we're dealing with these products as though they're manufactured in our own facility, and that's the agreement we have with them. It's all open book. In fact, I was there last week, and Tuffy and I, the president, we're going back tomorrow, on Monday, and Tuesday we're going to be pulling product right off the line. So for example, when we're sampling this product, they're not sending it to us. We're there pulling it off the line arbitrarily.
Excellent.
Franco, one of the things that I've noticed is we're getting a lot of attention when it comes to the autoimmune disorders, chronic illnesses, in particular with Empower. And if you wouldn't mind just talking for a moment about what it is that's got so many people excited about your research in this area.
Well, the research really started out as research targeting inflammation, but what we have come to realize is that autoimmune diseases are prolific in our first world countries. And the interesting thing is we don't see a lot of auto-inflammatory or autoimmune diseases in third world countries. And so we wonder, why is this? And we believe that the excessive oxidation and pollution and toxins that we may not have a lot of data on might be contributing to these conditions as triggers. But the other reality that science has unveiled is that there's a genetic component. So there's two things. One is there's a genetic component where we don't have the capacity to normally or to typically regulate the inflammatory response to these triggers that are foreign. And so when those two things are coupled, we have these autoimmune diseases. So how do we cope with this? The research on Empower has demonstrated that we're able to reduce subclinical inflammation in the body. And subclinical inflammation is the inflammation that kind of festers and doesn't do a lot of damage, but what it does is it lowers our tolerance to triggers, you see. And so by reducing this subclinical inflammation, you reduce the risk of these symptoms or the triggering of these autoimmune conditions that may be genetically embedded in some of us. And that's how this product works, and that's why we're finding people gravitate towards our work and our technology, is that it's not necessarily a cure, because we may not be able to change how our genes are mutated. It's like I often say that some people surrender to this misbelief that we're vulnerable to the genes that we inherit. Well, we can't do anything about the genes we inherit, but we can change the way they're expressed. And so we can block various oxidants and factors that trigger these mutations or accelerate certain genes that are not supposed to be working at a fast pace, like the COX enzyme that I speak of, the cyclooxygenase enzyme involved in accelerating the inflammatory response. Well, Empower, what it does is it blocks the unnatural oxidation that unnaturally escalates the gene responsible for manufacturing the COX enzyme. And so are we manipulating our genes or manipulating technology or manipulating our natural systems with Empower? No. What we're doing is blocking the unnatural forces that third world countries, for example, may not be experiencing. And so that's the amazing thing about it. We have these people coming to us in desperation saying, conventional drugs work for me, but I'm still experiencing a poor lifestyle because of the side effects. But we're able with Empower to take away a lot of these uncontrolled factors, the influences on these genes, so that now people have a little bit of better quality of life and a little bit of control over these conditions. And they may never even feel the manifestations of the inflammation because it never reaches threshold, although the genetic anomaly is still there. And that's how the product works, and that's why we're seeing these people come to us. The samples that we sent out, I don't have to talk about all of the individual experiences, but have had people coming to us in droves because when they ran out, they realized, wow, something was happening, this stuff's working. And it was the epiphany I had in 1991. This stuff's not just a performance enhancer. It was subduing this condition I didn't even know I had because I was using it prolifically until I stopped using it. And so we're definitely going to change lives. And the more research is done on why the inflammatory cascade becomes uncontrollable in these conditions over the next 2 years, because we're that close to finding the answer, the sooner we're going to find out why Empower is so important for everybody, whether you have a disease, a chronic inflammatory condition or not, because it will reduce the risk of you developing a chronic condition. Even fibromyalgia. What's fibromyalgia? Nobody's really pinpointed what it is. They have swollen lymph nodes and pain that's inadvertent and poor energy, and people are just not able to follow through in life. They take Empower, life changes because it empowers the immune system. It empowers that inflammatory control. And it works because it just allows your body to do what it's supposed to do, not because it blocks various compounds and toxins and systems. It just basically allows your body to do what it's designed to do.
Change a lot of lives with that product.